Thank you for joining us for All Things MSP Live. My name is Eric Anthony. I'll be your host tonight, and we really do appreciate you spending some time with us. Now, you may be asking, what is All Things MSP? We are a community, first and foremost, of MSPs and people around the MSP industry, vendors, subject matter experts, all that kind of stuff, and we're talking about the non-technical side of being an MSP. Now, most of our activity happens in our Facebook group. That's the platform that we've been on the longest. You can join us there at facebook.com/groups/all things MSP. There's about 6,000 members in the group, and somebody is there waiting to talk to you. And we also, if you don't do Facebook, we have a LinkedIn company page. So you can go to linkedin.com/company/all things MSP. Now, last but not least, we also have a YouTube channel. So you can head on over there. This is where you can probably get the best experience watching the live stream because it allows us to interact better through the comments there. But also, we publish a weekly podcast there as well, in addition to publishing it to all of your favorite podcast platforms. But we also post other pieces of content as well. So make sure you go there, you like, you subscribe, you do all the things to make sure you get notified so that you'll know when we post new podcasts, as well as we're doing a new live stream. Now, the live stream is typically every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We try not to miss it, but sometimes life happens. Okay, we got about 19 seconds left before we start the show. We'll see you there. The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of its participants and do not reflect the views and opinions of any employer, MSP, sponsor, advertiser, or vendor. Hey everybody, welcome back to another live stream here on All Things MSP. We do appreciate you being here. We have a great show for you tonight. I really am excited about this topic. I was trying to think of things that we could talk about, and some of the things that MSP owners tell themselves on a constant basis, it kind of seems, that aren't really true, especially anymore. They may have been true back when kind of I started this thing, and a lot of you probably started as well, but they're definitely not true anymore. So we're going to go through those tonight. But before we get there, we do have some sponsors to thank tonight. We have our first sponsor tonight is a brand new premier sponsor, and that's Nodeware. Traditional vulnerability management is outdated, disruptive, and costly. Nodeware offers MSPs a better solution. Continuous 24/7 vulnerability scanning, even during business hours with no network impact. Deploy it remotely via software agents and sensors, eliminating the need for extra hardware and on-site visits, saving you time and money. The multi-tenant dashboard with built-in remediation guidance and patch management makes it easy to identify, manage, and remediate vulnerabilities quickly, helping you better protect your clients. Visit atmsp.link/Nodeware to learn more. And our second sponsor tonight is GoZinta. What if you had a CFO, COO, and a business coach without the six-figure salaries? That's the power of GoZinta's growth program. You can get access to an on-demand C-suite, experienced professionals who've been in the MSP trenches and know how to guide your next move. Whether it's pricing, hiring, or scaling, you don't have to guess anymore. Head to atmsp.link/GoZinta and get the executive support your business deserves without breaking the bank. Check out atmsp.link/GoZinta to learn more. All right, everybody. A couple of more things I did want to talk about tonight. Of course, ChannelCon is coming up in July. It is July 29th through the 31st. If you're not familiar with ChannelCon, this is the largest agnostic event that is held every year because it's held by a trade association, right? And it used to be CompTIA. Now it's the Global Technology Industry Association, or GTIA. And I think this year is going to be really great and definitely something that you're going to want to check out. I'm going to be there. It's in Nashville this year. One of the best towns, in my opinion, to have an event is Nashville because there's so many great things to do. In addition, of course, to going to the event is being held at the Gaylord this year, and great venue as well. Love the Gaylord hotels for event venues. As most people will know, they are just amazing hotels. All right, we do have more room for 2025 sponsors. So if you are a vendor and you are interested in sponsoring All Things MSP and creating content here on All Things MSP, because we don't just sell sponsorships and put your name up on places. We do the live read ads like you saw at the beginning of this show. We also do posts in the Facebook group. We also create other longer forms of content with you during the year so that you get the most out of your sponsorship and we help your marketing team out a little bit. All right. And of course, after the show tonight is Marvin B's live stream, and he's going to be talking about what's in your go bag. So this should be interesting. Obviously, it looks like it's going to be sponsored by NetAlly. Interesting show tonight. And so make sure you head on over there if you don't get your fill of MSP stuff here on All Things MSP Live. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the topic for tonight. And that is the top 5 lies MSPs tell themselves. Now, why did I come up with this topic? Because I think that there's a lot of situations these days where MSPs kind of are telling themselves the wrong things. And that's why I labeled it the way I did. It's the top lies you're telling yourselves about this industry. Now, some of these are going to be about things that were true in the past and are not necessarily true today. And others are going to be things that are just kind of things that have gotten around the industry and we don't really test them. And I don't think they're true. Now, I will say a lot of this is going to be my opinion. So take it with that angle to it. And yeah, let's just have some fun with this tonight. So, lie number 1, we don't need to niche down. I would say that this one is partially a lie. I think it's the way you tell it to yourself, really. And that is you may not need to niche down, okay? I think it does help, especially if you want to go after a certain industry, right? It's very hard to target 2 industries at the same time, especially as a smaller MSP. As you grow, you can actually add subject matter experts or specialists to help you tackle those individual industries. But I think if you're going to do an industry focus, it really needs to be one at a time. Now, why do I think this is only a partial lie? Because a lot of people look at niching down as industry specific. And I don't think that has to be the case. I think you can also niche down into specific sizes of businesses. There are a lot of horizontal, and by that I mean not vertical, right? Small to medium sized businesses that in general act the same, okay? Because they all use the same software in general, right? They don't have industry specific software, but they're probably using QuickBooks. They're probably using some type of CRM. They're probably using a bunch of different cloud applications, maybe to do marketing and things like that. And so you can niche into what I would call the horizontal SMB space, right? So don't just think of niching down as verticals, but also thinking in terms of demographics and types of clients or kind of the attributes of clients. And we'll go with things like size or with the types of customers that they serve, or things like retail, because even retail is a huge horizontal business scope, right? So you can niche down without going vertical. And I think that focus allows you to create your offerings, your services around a specific type of customer, and it allows you to be more efficient at your marketing, more efficient in your technology stack, more efficient in how much your technicians need to learn in order to support those clients. So I do think that niching down or focusing on a certain type of client is something that you need to do, especially when you are a smaller MSP or you are just starting out, because trying to be everything to everybody, especially when you're starting out, is probably not the best idea. Okay, and I just realized I did not have the comments window open, so I want to make sure I do that. If you have any comments tonight, please go ahead and number one, let me know you're here. Number two, if you have questions or you want to challenge what I'm saying, please feel free. This is not a one-way conversation, or it's not meant to be. So I definitely want to hear from you, and conversations are absolutely invited. Okay, so that was line number one. Line number two is word of mouth is the only marketing that works. And, word of mouth was great, or referrals, whatever you want to call it, was great back in the day. I mean, I built basically one MSP, one break fix, because MSP wasn't a thing yet back then. Yes, the beard, I am that old. Although hopefully it's getting longer. I'm trying to, channel my inner Matt Lee. I don't know. But this really, I built two businesses on word of mouth or referral marketing. I did very little actual marketing, probably some more towards the end of my MSP before I sold it. I did use Robin Robbins technology marketing toolkit, used, the pre-made things that they came out of there, mostly the postcards, and those worked really well for me. But by and large, I grew both of those businesses on word of mouth marketing. So you're asking yourself at this point, Eric, why don't we use word of mouth marketing now? Well, you still can. The problem is it's not as effective as it used to be. And the reason that it's not as effective is that word of mouth marketing depends on you waiting for somebody to refer you to somebody else who's asking that existing customer of yours for a referral. And that's just not stable. It's not predictable. You don't control any part of that. Okay. Now you combine that with the fact that there are more, what I would say, business or marketing forward MSPs out there today who are actively marketing to the audience that you would want as prospective clients. And so you've got two things going against you. You've got the unpredictability piece, and then you've got the fact that more MSPs are out there marketing to the people that you would like to have for clients. And they're basically disrupting that, because if they see the marketing from the other MSP, they may never ask for a referral. So that's why you have to, number one, kind of jumpstart your referral program. Okay. There are things that absolutely I believe you should do to get more referrals in the door and make it more predictable. But then number two, you absolutely have to do some other kind of marketing to get new clients in the door. Now, how fast you get new clients in the door is up to you, right? You may be happy with where you're at, and you only need maybe one client a month, one client every 2 months. Maybe it's just to replace that client that every once in a while leaves because they either move or they shut their doors, or through no fault of your own, you lose a client. It happens. So what we want to do is those two things that I talked about. Now, number one is the jump starting your referrals. And basically what this means is going out and creating a referral program. So you're not just waiting for referrals to come in. You're actually going out, and at your meetings with your existing clients, you are asking for referrals and you are incentivizing them for those referrals, because you never know who in an office, in a workspace, is going to promote you. And so you want to have little business cards that have referral bonuses or whatever on them, so that every time they give that business card to somebody and that referral comes back to you, you have a way to pay for that referral. It can be as simple as a Starbucks gift card, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. One thing that I would say though is that one of the reasons why referrals and word of mouth is so good is because by the time you get that referral, they already have a certain amount of trust with you that is very expensive to buy through regular marketing. So it's actually probably worth a little bit more than a Starbucks gift card, but most people are highly appreciative of a Starbucks gift card and will happily take that in exchange for a referral. So that's one way to jumpstart your referrals. Another way is to do co-op marketing. And what I mean by that, or joint venture marketing, it's sometimes called. And what I mean by that is you probably have vendors that are adjacent to you, or your clients have vendors that are adjacent to you. In my case, when I had my MSP, I had a voice over IP vendor that I used a lot. We did a lot of projects together. And because of that, what we would do is he would give me a letter to send to my clients about his phone services. And then he would send a letter from me to his clients, and I would get referrals from that. It was a great way to kind of just spark more of those referrals type of business coming in because they already trusted the other vendor. And the nice thing about this is you're not giving somebody your list. They're not giving you their list. You're giving them what to send out, and then they send it. So that's the benefit here is you don't lose control of your client list. And that's important to that process. So those are two ways that you can, and this worked very well for me, dramatically increase the effectiveness of word of mouth and referral marketing. Okay. But it's still, in this day and age, if you want to grow, I'm not saying you need to do external marketing or extra marketing if you want to maintain the status quo. You can probably maintain the status quo with word of mouth and referral as long as you jumpstart it with some of those things that I talked about. Now, if you are one of those MSPs who wants to grow, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to find other ways to do marketing. And Tom Lawrence actually had a great post on this today. He had a kind of a meme up about, doing cold calling, doing SEO. And then finally, there's a guy at the end who says we should do content marketing, and they push him out the window. I mean, content marketing is probably the most powerful piece of marketing that you can do right now. The problem is that it takes time for content marketing to saturate and for you to start seeing results from that content marketing because it has to be out there for a while. I liken it to having billboards. One of my clients, when I was in Orlando, was a pool table manufacturer. And they also had a couple of retail stores in town to sell their own pool tables. And they used billboards very effectively because think about this. If you are buying a pool table, it's not something that you're just going to impulse buy most of the time, right? You are going to be looking for a pool table when you are buying a house, which doesn't happen very often, when you are adding on to a house and you're building a game room or something like that. So it's one of those things where it's very time sensitive in terms of getting in front of that person who needs to buy a pool table because they only need it at very specific points in time. So they used billboards on I-40. If you're familiar with Orlando, I-40 is the major interstate that runs straight through town. There's also lots of, angst around I-40. And I was stuck in it plenty of times myself. But that worked best for them because most people who lived in and around Orlando drove by those billboards at least several times a year. And so they would be reminded, and if they were commuting, they would be reminded a lot that there was a place to buy pool tables. They made them there in town and you could buy a customized pool table for your new game room or your new house. Now, why do I consider that light content marketing? Because of the way content sits out on the internet today and is relatively easily findable, it is important for you to have a good amount of content out there in order to be found, right? Websites just don't do it anymore. Yes, they may find you by looking up, keywords and finding your website, but it's much more likely that they will find content that you created on a larger site like YouTube or a blogging site or on Facebook or LinkedIn. It's much more likely that they're going to find content rather than a website, unless you have a lot of content on your website. That'll work too. But a lot of this means you're going to have to create content. You're going to have to put it out there, and then you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to see when that stuff starts coming in. You'll get some engagement right away, but more of it will come as time progresses and that content is out there longer. So, a couple of key points here. Make sure that that content is as evergreen as possible, right? I know that that's sometimes very difficult in our industry because technology changes all the time, but evergreen content for the long term works best. Now, you do want to make it SEO friendly, right? Because again, you want to make it findable. And then third, you need to find some way of being able to know when people have engaged with your content. So you want to have them take one step further and say, give you their email address in exchange for a white paper or a more detailed piece of content on what you're sharing in the smaller piece of content. You want them to follow you on Facebook or follow you on LinkedIn, depending on your type of business, of type of customer that you're going after. Anything that allows you to know who they are so that you can reach back out to them. And that's when I would say it's not really cold calling, but that's when you would actually engage them outbound wise, whether it's an email, whether it's a direct message on LinkedIn, whether it's, a phone call, whatever it is, that's when you start engaging with them. So again, word of mouth, it's fine if you want to maintain a status quo kind of business. I think you do have to kind of bolster it up, do a couple of extra things that are going to allow you to kind of kick it into gear, I would say, especially if you're only going to do it sometimes when you're replacing clients and not trying to grow. If you're trying to grow in the current MSP environment today, I think you have to look at other types of marketing besides word of mouth. All right. Lie number 3, we can't raise prices. This is just a lie. I'm sorry. I'm just going to call this one out. It's just plain a lie. What you can't do is you can't just tell your customers that you raised prices. That you can't do. And yeah, you're right about that. However, you can raise prices. You just have to give them plenty of time to adjust, and you need to make sure you give them a good explanation for why you're doing it. And you should be able to do that. You should be able to justify your price increases, whether it's, the fact that you haven't done price increases for 5 to 10 years, maybe, or you are adding more security components onto your stack that allow you to protect them better, lower their risk. There's all kinds of different things that you want to do to better protect them or make them more efficient in their business. Now, that is a short-term solution, right? Because what you really need to do is you need to get over that hurdle of just, getting that first price increase. Once you do the first one, the subsequent ones are actually a lot easier. And I always recommend having that in the wording of your managed services agreement. Okay. Because look, I don't think we've ever had negative inflation, right? And because of that, things are always going to go up in price. Your labor costs are going to go up in price. The cost of your tools are going to go up in price. Everything's going to go up. It may not go up a lot every year, but it is going to go up. So you need to be adjusting your prices per contract and have that as part of your managed services agreement. Now, there's also something that I recommend that I know a lot of other people recommend as well, and that is you have to have a 5 to 10% buffer in your managed services agreement. This is 5 to 10% of maybe it's extra profit this year, but it's 5 to 10% that's going to allow you to add or subtract and swap out tools and things in your stack services that are beneficial to your client without asking your client if you can. This is it's a game changer because it allows you the freedom as the managed service provider to actually go in and do your job correctly without having to go through another round of budget approval. And that's important because it takes time and it kind of handcuffs you as the service provider, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that as the managed service provider, we have the flexibility and the freedom to go in and add components and add services that are going to help our client without having to do a non-renewal term price increase. Okay. Because then what you do is you get to the end of the year when they're already expecting a price increase because it's in your managed services agreement, and you can go, Mr. Customer, we've actually added these services this year and we added them at no additional cost. They did increase our cost, but we did it because it's the best thing for you. And now we're raising our price to compensate for those. And now the next year, guess what? Because you've raised your prices to cover those costs again, you now have that 5 to 10% back in your margin to be able to do the same thing next year if you need to. Now, you don't always have to do a price increase. You don't have to. If your prices didn't change that much, or maybe even things came down, if you're happy with your profit margins, if you're hitting your target profit margins, don't raise prices. You don't have to, but you need to have mechanisms in there to make it easy and predictable for both you and your clients so there are no surprises. That's the thing with price increases, is they cannot be a surprise. If you can do everything you can to not make them a surprise, your customers will be okay with them. Trust me. And the ones that aren't, which they're going to be a lot less than you think, they probably weren't worth it in the first place. And just ramp up your word of mouth and referral marketing. See what I did there? And go get some more customers to replace those because they're just not worth it. Right. And then even you can hold on to those customers, by the way. You can say, oh, I probably need to get rid of these customers because they're not as profitable and they won't let me increase their prices. Just hold on to them until you get a new client to replace them, and then don't renew them at the end of their term. Another reason why it's very important to have term limits on your managed service agreements. You cannot go month to month. It's perfectly fine to let them pay month to month, but you need to have that renewal date so that you can actually control the renewal and say, I'm sorry, this isn't working out. We're not going to renew your managed services agreement, and you have 30 days to find somebody else. It happens, and you need to be able to do it. You need to have the freedom as a business owner to be able to go and do that. All right. Lie number 4, we can handle everything in-house. There was a day when we could. There was absolutely a day when we could do all the patch management. We could do all of the antivirus updates and monitoring, and we could, support their in-house software. We could help them with their website. But things have grown significantly since then. And I don't think there's any bigger part of this that has grown than cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is not only a heck of a lot of work, but it also requires some skills that not all of us have and are or can be relatively expensive to hire, right? So I think the days of we can handle everything in-house are literally over. And I think that You need to be good at what you're good at, and you need to outsource the things that you're not good at. And if that's cybersecurity, fine. There's plenty of outsourced SOCs, and incident response teams that you can contract with. You may not even be great at help desk, and so you can actually outsource your help desk these days, so they can handle all of the simple problems. The Microsoft 365 questions, the QuickBooks questions, the Slack questions, the Teams questions. And by the way, I'm just going to do a shout out to one of our new sponsors, Helped. That's HELPT. You can find out more at atmsp.link/helped. And they are going to be your outsourced help desk so that you can go, again, do the things that you're best at. And maybe that's, making sure their wireless network is configured properly, that everything is working up to speed, that you're consulting on their compliance. Maybe your strength is compliance. So don't bind yourself up doing help desk. Go and do the compliance work that's going to bring you more money and outsource that help desk. Now, compliance is another good one. It requires special expertise. Now, there's a lot of companies out there that will help you with it, especially if you're doing relatively simple compliance, right? And so there's a lot of options there, but I think that this industry has just grown. And like I said, especially with cybersecurity and especially with compliance and just with all the different complex technologies that are coming together and being used in business. And I think it's just too much, especially for a one-person shop, a two-person shop, maybe even 3-4 person shop, to be able to have all of those expertise to do all of that work. I think another one that we're going to see a lot of in the near future is AI. I think there's going to be a lot of consulting opportunities around AI because this is where the future of productivity is going. The knowledge workers of tomorrow are going to be leveraging AI every single day in their job. I personally don't think it's going to replace humans, but I think it is absolutely going to augment humans and make them faster. So, line number 4, we can handle everything in-house. Absolutely not true today. You can handle a certain amount, but you will get yourself into situations where you need more cybersecurity expertise, you need more compliance expertise, or you need somebody to help you with the help desk so you can go do the things that you're best at. You'd probably have already outsourced or just referred out website services because most MSPs don't do website services anymore. So it's happened. We just need to make sure we're not telling ourselves we can do everything, because that's going to dramatically decrease your efficiency. And every time we have a decrease in efficiency, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to say every time, but 9 times out of 10, you have a decrease in profitability. And so if you want to keep your profitability high, know what you're good at, do those things, and outsource the rest. Okay, and line number 5, and we'll wrap this up. Clients understand our value and scope. Nope. No, they don't. Because they don't understand technology and they don't understand what technology can do for them. Now, I think there's a couple of ways to look at this, right? I think that if you are an MSP delivering help desk support, generic IT services, generic outsourced IT services, that there's probably a better chance that they understand the value and scope. Now, value can be a bunch of different things. It can be just that outsourced IT service, or it can actually be more of a business partner, more of a member of management within the companies who's helping them make decisions about how technology can drive more business for them or more efficient business for them. And that's why I think the idea of VCIO, VCTO is very important for the MSP, because now you're communicating at a level with senior management of your clients that are going to drive a whole new level of value. And so I know a lot of people don't like using the VCIO term because a lot of times, or I'm not going to say a lot of times, but very frequently in our industry, people have used that instead of an account manager or a salesperson, you get a VCIO. Terrible use of the term. A VCIO should actually be that for your client. It should be somebody who comes in and can help them manage how the information systems within their business help their business, make it more efficient, help it grow, all those things. Now, the VCTO is a little bit different. Now we're talking about a virtual chief technology officer. And typically in a business, the difference between the CIO and the CTO is the CIO manages all of the information systems. Okay. They're in charge of making sure everything's working right, making sure that everybody has the right reports and all the systems are rolling and everything's working efficiently. The CTO is looking at new technologies that can actually drive the business forward. Okay. So CIO, more management, CTO, more almost R&D, right? Because now as a CTO, you are trying to find out how you can make their business better with technologies that they are not yet using. AI falls into this, IoT falls into this. For certain industries, drones could fall into this. There are lots of opportunities because there's always new technologies coming out, and there are always going to be, especially if you niche down, like we talked at the very beginning, you're going to be able to find specific applications for those technologies for that particular kind of client. And it's very important that you be able to drive that kind of value if you want to get more value out of the relationship. If you want to be more valuable to the client and therefore more profitable for your business, you need to be able to drive up that value, and they need to understand the value of what you're providing to the business. So you need to communicate it properly. You need to label it properly so that they understand the value. Now, line number 5B, because I probably could have separated these out, but I already had it set up. So I was like, I'm just going to add the word scope because this is another important one to me. Clients rarely understand the scope. They just think you're the IT guy, the technology guy or gal. And this will get a lot of MSPs in trouble, especially if you don't have a managed services agreement that makes sense and actually defines the scope. Okay. Because technology is everywhere now in business. Phones are part of the technology. The computers are part of the technology. The alarm system is part of the technology. And why? Because it's connected to the network. Okay. So if something comes in, I'll pull an old one out of the hat, right? The old Target breach, right? Where it was an HVAC system connected to the network, which allowed them to breach the credit card machines, which were on the same network. Now, we all understand today that that's not the right way to do it. However, those kinds of situations are going to come up because new technology is coming out all the time. The question is, does your client understand that some things are in your scope and some things are out of your scope? And are those things defined in writing? Because if they're not, you could absolutely get yourself in trouble by not being clear about what your scope is to your clients. And I guarantee you, without a proper managed service agreement, your clients do not understand your scope. Now, what's my personal opinion on this? I think that you should make your scope as wide as possible for two reasons. Number one, they're going to think that that scope is that wide anyway. So why not expand it, charge for it properly, and just deal with it, right? That is the way I would want to do it because I would want to have control. Now, it's hard sometimes to have that control. And so sometimes you're not going to be able to enlarge the scope to encompass everything. But there are lots of things that you can do to help with that scope. One of them is to make sure that, they have the right cyber liability insurance, to make sure that you have the right cyber E&O insurance, all the different types of insurance that you need to cover yourselves and your clients properly. I do want to mention, they're not a sponsor, but I think that Cork is something that most MSPs should look at. I think it's a great way to help your clients maintain their insurance readiness, I guess I'll call it, or compliance, so that if something does happen, they are covered. Because that's one of my biggest fears for an MSP, is that you guys will go out and you'll have these clients, and then something happens. It's not really your fault because they did something wrong, and it's something that for whatever reason you weren't monitoring for, and then there's an incident, insurance company won't pay out. The client's going to look at you 9 times out of 10 to find out why it happened and why they weren't protected. And, they could come after you legally as well. And Cork really helps with that. And just setting up monitoring in your RMM. If you can enumerate all of those different things that the insurance company is requiring, and you can actually set up whatever you need to in your RMM to be checking that, great. But that kind of thing, making sure that you're staying in scope, making sure that they're staying in scope, really does help. And again, if you don't define it, they're going to increase it to whatever they need to blame you. And that's what I'm trying to avoid here. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really do appreciate you guys being here. Had several people on tonight, although none of you participated in the chat. Can we try and do better next time, please? I'm just kidding. I'm really just glad you're here. If you need more information, we can absolutely continue this conversation in the Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/all things MSP. Check us out on LinkedIn, all of the different places. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go on over to YouTube. We publish a lot of other content over on YouTube that's not included in the live stream, including the podcast. And if you're not familiar, we do a podcast every week. The host is Justin Escar. I am just the lowly co-host and producer of the show, but it is a lot of fun, and you can catch that either on your favorite podcast application or on YouTube. Sometimes it's more fun in YouTube because we tend to do some crazy things, and the facial expressions just make the show. I'm just going to say it. Other than that, we do also, if you're a vendor watching this, we do vendor updates every year. So every year, every vendor, whether they're a paid sponsor or not, can come on, and for 15 minutes, we introduce you to the All Things MSP audience. So those are open and available to you. So go ahead and sign up. And I did guilt somebody into saying that they're here. So thank you, Job Technologies. Do appreciate you being here. Anyway, we're going to end it here tonight. We're a little bit early, but that gives you time to go get dessert, go get, some coffee or a drink, and get ready for Uncle Marv's show. Because, who wants to miss Uncle Marv's show? All right. It's been a great time talking to you tonight. If you have comments about these 5 lies that MSPs tell themselves, please check it out. Let me know. Hey, thanks for watching All Things MSP Live. You can reach me, Eric Anthony, at eric@allthingsmsp.com. If you're a guest, if you're a vendor, if you want to sponsor the show, let me know.